Welcome back to They Not Like Us. I'm your host, Aaron, and today we've got a special episode lined up with an amazing guest. Joining me is Peter Bray, an ex-professional actor, director, and acting teacher who has taken his storytelling skills from the stage and brought them into the world of marketing. He's now a story-driven marketing expert who helps brands build real, authentic relationships with their audiences using the power of personal stories and copywriting. In this episode, Peter will share his insights on how you can move from being just another X to becoming a market of one, the key to creating a deeply loyal following. Plus, he's going to break down his game-changing 5-sentence story blueprint that can transform the way you engage with your customers. Trust me, you won't want to miss this one. It's packed with actionable advice and a few fun stories along the way. But before we dive in, I've got a quick favour to ask. If you enjoy the episode, please subscribe to the podcast. It really helps the show grow, and it ensures that you never miss out on future interviews like this one. Your support means the world, so hit that subscribe button and let's get into it.
Hello, welcome back to They Not Like Us. I'm your host, Aaron. With me today, I have a special guest in Peter Bray. Welcome to the show, Peter.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Excited to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're all about, please?
Yeah, very excited to get into it. What I do is I basically noticed that a lot of business owners, coaches, consultants who I work with do amazing things for their clients, but just have no idea how to communicate that. So when they look at their website, written sales copy, anything like that, they just think it doesn't do justice to the real kind of essence of what they do for their clients. And so what I do is I work as a story-driven marketing messaging consultant that helps them get to the real core of what that message should be, and then use that to create written assets. That can be a sales page, websites, it can be social media posts, whatever it is. And the outcome is to just basically find their story, simple stories that help them get clients and customers.
How do you go about finding them stories, Peter? Do you spend a lot of time with them, or is it through a bit of online research? How do you figure out their story?
Well, I think that's the magic question, because it's a whole process. The answer is yes to all of the above, but there are rules, because a lot of people talk about, storytelling for sales and marketing and business growth and all that kind of thing. But the real epiphany for me was when I realized that all that hero's journey, all of that kind of stuff is great. All of the kind of case study storytelling, water cooler stories to build trust and rapport, all of that's great. But all of those are subordinate stories, and they come underneath your transformation story that you offer. Transformation story is very simple. It's, I help these people to go from this state to this state. Simple, one-sentence transformation story. So the language that you use to fill in those blanks, usually people guess at it, they do a bit of research and they just say, okay, I found it. That's the transformation story that I offer. A lot of coaches do this. They're an expert, and so they use the language of their expertise to describe the transformation that they offer their ideal clients and customers. The problem is you shouldn't use your language to fill in, to tell that story, to paint the picture of that transformation. You shouldn't use a copywriter's words. You shouldn't use a marketing consultant's words. The language that you use to tell that story must be the language that your dream clients and customers use to talk about their problems and their goals. And so how you find that really is the golden question. There's lots of ways. One way is to talk to them, is to send messages to your best past clients and say, hey, hope you're good, have a little catch up, and then say, I'm reaching out because I'm trying to understand the language that my best clients and customers use to talk about the problems and the stuff that I help them with. Would you be interested in, are you open to having a 20-minute chat where I can ask you some questions? And you listen very, very, very carefully, and you ask if they're okay with you recording it. And then you go back, you do that a bunch, and you go back and you look for patterns in that language. And one of the main problems that I have with my clients is that they underestimate that process. They think they're good listeners, they're coaches often, and they think, yeah, I know my clients very well, and they do. The thing is that you need to be outside of your own expertise to really listen on the right level. So I have a client right now who's done this recently. She helps with a huge range of problems, from really serious low emotional state problems, anxiety, depression, with problems like OCD, also with business coaching, really a huge set of things that she helps people with, and didn't know how to define that. In fact, had a lot of resistance to being specific and defining this. She felt like she was having to niche down and say, I can help you with addiction problems to get clean. And that's only one of a million things that she did that she helped with. So what we did was went through a whole process, one of which was I sat down and pulled up all of her best reviews from clients who she wanted to find more people like that. So we were trying to create a message that would resonate with the people who she was most excited to keep working with. And I just put in bold all of the before and after statements that were in the language of the written reviews. And after a while, we found a real pattern with people who had different problems, but they manifested in a similar way. All of them used some phrase that indicated that they were struggling to cope at work, struggling with stress in the workplace because of, and then whatever problem. So then that became one of the stories that we put front and center. If you're facing a problem that's causing you to struggle at work, if you can't cope at work because X, Y, Z, and that became some of the real language that we use, because that's clearly whatever the different root of the problem is, that's how it manifests at the point where they say, her dream client says, I've had enough of this, I need to get help. That's when they become committed to getting help. So that's one example. You can research, you can look at what other people are doing, but my golden rule is that the language needs to be copied and pasted from an actual conversation from either a past customer or someone who would be an ideal customer. So that's my obsession with storytelling.
That makes a lot of sense, actually, and it's probably something that we are all bad at, where we just kind of go through life assuming we know what we're doing or what other people are looking for, when we're not actually digging into the detail and figuring out, like that story about it being about work. She may never have found that out if she continued with the way she was going, and probably could have lost out on a lot of important connections and customers that she could have helped, really.
That's it. She was absolutely gobsmacked, because she knew, she couldn't believe that was such gold, and it was right under her nose the whole time. And I mean, she's incredibly intuitive, incredibly good with people, an extraordinary listener, has got a verbatim memory for conversations with people and what they've been through. Tells me the most extraordinary stories about stuff that she's helped with. But often that's the problem, is that you're so much of an expert when you're the one on the front lines doing it, that you don't have the ability to step outside. And this is something that I struggle with. Like I can't do it unless I get myself to follow my own structure, I have to remind myself to drink my own medicine. There was one person who I was explaining recent offer that I created about helping actually coach someone through this process over a series of months. This can really take months to really keep going and digging and finding and testing, because the proof's in the pudding. If you think you found it and then no one else resonates, then you need to keep going until you find something that's going to really take off. But I was talking to someone saying that I have an offer where I'm helping my clients to get warm traffic to their website and their wherever they want people to find them. And this is a guy who's owned businesses for a couple of decades. But when I said warm traffic, he was like, warm traffic? Wow, sounds a bit rude. Joking, but clearly it didn't. I was like, everyone knows, website traffic. Oh, come on, you don't. Oh no, I've done the thing. I've done the thing that I say not to do, and just assumed that that's a phrase that's going to work. And actually, what some of my dream customers say is, I just need to get myself out there. I need to get out of my comfort zone and get myself out there. I'm good at what I do. I need to take the leap and stop just going to little networking events and finally commit to getting myself out there. So that's the language that I learned slightly painfully through a conversation with a prospective client that I got completely wrong.
Yeah, it takes these experiences for us to find these things out, doesn't it? But it's quite interesting that we have this perception, and often it can be wrong, of who we're trying to help and our clients and stuff. And like you say, we go to all these little networking events, or we try everything that you see on the internet, but a lot of the time it just becomes copying what other people are doing, or trying to mimic somebody else's message, and that's not true to you, and probably not true to your customers, and that's probably where we go wrong a lot of the time.
That's exactly it, and that happens a lot. People go, what do I put on my website? And most people have an idea of who their competition is, whether they think about it in competition. Not everyone thinks their competition, I'm against them. But it's just other people who do something similar to me. I'll just copy what they do. That seems, that seems to be the obvious answer. And I suppose you could do worse in a way, but then it's a real shame, because you're going to be offering something different to them. You're going to be, by the nature of doing that process, you're not differentiating yourself. You're doing the opposite. So, and they were there first by the very nature of you copying them. They got there first. So even if what they're saying is very resonant and very special, that number one spot in a market, or in a category within a market, is worth its weight in gold. So it's much better if you can put in the work to find your own area of messaging where you can be number one. You can own that category, and anyone else who copies you, they're copying you.
Yeah, I think it's important to be authentic as well. I think if you're trying to sell somebody else's message, or copying somebody else's message, then it's going to be difficult to keep that up and to even be true to that message, because it's not yours, and it's going to be really difficult to get it right. And you need to find your own. You need to find yourself, really, and find your own business, who you are, what you're all about, and what your customers are all about, and then you can really actually build a connection and a relationship, because that's what it is, really, isn't it? It's a relationship between your business and the customer, really.
That's exactly it. It's the relationship, and once you found that, I like starting from that simple transformation story, get that nailed, and then that opens the door to you saying, okay, so why do I help with that? How have I got here where that's what my customers are saying is the most valuable thing that I help them with? And then you can work backwards after that. That's why I say all the other stories, like the origin story, hero's journey, all of that stuff is great, but it's subordinate. It needs to come after that primary story, the transformation story, because it will dictate what you choose. A lot of people are kind of, I have a client who is a business coach, communication coach. Again, expert, masterful communicator by literal definition. He's helped other startup founders to raise hundreds of millions of dollars through successful investor pitching. But the origin story that they were going out to the market with was great, but it wasn't tied, that the transformation story was buried. It was in paragraph 5 of that story. And once we uncovered that was what their transformation story really was, we were able to bring that front and center first. That's the headline. And then that earns the attention for then people to continue and read through the actual origin story. Because, it can be very difficult to figure out, well, what is my origin story? How did I get here? And this serves as a kind of filter. basically, to join the dots between, okay, so that's the story. Everything else revolves around that transformation story that's in the language of my best customers and clients. That then dictates what makes me different. The stories, I have a background in entertainment storytelling. So I've got one foot in entertainment storytelling, one foot in direct sales and marketing. I'm a professional Shakespeare actor of 14 years turned story-driven marketing coach. Not that many people can say that, and it's only relevant because I first found that what I really do for people is help themselves get out there to get clients and customers using storytelling. And then I can join the dots and work backwards and say, yeah, why have I ended up here, and what makes me special, what makes me able to provide value? And it's really, the interesting bit is that I have performed Hamlet, Midsummer Night's Dream, Macbeth, all sorts of things in front of, I have no idea how many, but hundreds of thousands of people, either live or recorded, and learnt the craft of what I think is a much more complicated and difficult version of storytelling, which is entertainment storytelling, where you've really got to, if you're on stage at the National Theatre or Shakespeare's Globe, you better know your stuff. You better know your craft as a storyteller and as an actor, and be able to live that story so people, come with you every moment, and they don't just check out. So yeah, that's I think it makes it easier to do it. I think it makes it simpler to use stories if you start off with that transformation story.
Yeah, how has that background in acting and Shakespeare helped you with your clients and with developing them stories and figuring out what works and what doesn't?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. It's grounded me in, first and foremost, passion for storytelling above everything else. I got obsessed with. So when I went to drama school, I wanted to be in Gladiator. I wanted to be in the next big Hollywood blockbuster historical epic. I wanted to basically play with swords and guns on sets and then look really cool in cinemas. And it didn't pan out that way, because one of the first jobs that I got out of drama school was being cast in an all-male production of A Midsummer Night's Dream that toured around England and Scotland. No, England and Wales, I think. Outdoors. And I was cast as Titania, Queen of the Fairies. So big leap away from, looking oiled up and muscular on a Hollywood screen. I was literally Queen of the Fairies, and accidentally completely fell in love with Shakespeare, which led me to then try and get better at it, which led me to read about the craft of storytelling itself. So Story by Robert McKee was like my absolute Bible. And then, all sorts of other things. I really, really fell in love with storytelling video essays on YouTube. There's one particular video that just, pretty much changed my life by a channel called Like Stories of Old. Very, very big channel. And something like the title of the video was the archetype of the dreamer in Moonlight, and talked about these just haunting patterns of archetypal storytelling. So I went really, really deep down the rabbit hole of understanding storytelling in that. I say entertainment storytelling. It's more than that, because what I think stories really are is that they're a map. They are a narrative map that describes where a being is in the present moment, where they've been in the past, and then how the actions and decisions that they take in the present moment unfold to take them to a new place in the future. That's basically a description of how our consciousness interacts with existence itself. So everything is a story. The narrative form is the only way that we can understand anything. So I went very far that way, and then started to, as an actor in between acting jobs, set up my own little side businesses and really struggled to get clients and customers. So I hadn't joined the dots between, storytelling was this kind of artistic craft that I was just obsessed with on that side of things. And it took a lot of failures for me to then join the dots with, okay, there's a different craft when it's used in sales and marketing, when you need clients and customers. And I had to really roll up my sleeves when I was living on my brother's sofa, penniless actor in between acting jobs, sharing the living room with his dog Diesel, who was incontinent. So I was pretty motivated to get out of that situation. And I made a huge effort to really learn the craft of direct response marketing and use a simple transformational offer. My first one was helping people who wanted to become voiceover artists to get their first voiceover job in under 14 days. And I created that as a simple transformational story, built an offer around it, built an email list using that story in 48 hours, and then used simple stories to build that trust and relationship. As you said, literally nothing more important. It's the only reason to use stories, to then have relationships with people on that email list, which then I helped with offers and products and services for years afterwards, all based on the act of asking them when they joined the email list, what's really going on? I'd love to help you. If I can help you, I'll reply to this email. Tell me what you're struggling with, what your challenges are, what you've tried, and what you would like to achieve. If you had a magic wand, where would you be? And people replied to that email, and I replied to them, and I would do everything I could to help them. And then I built up the patterns, and I collected the patterns and of their responses and the language that they used to be able to only basically make things that would really help people, literally with what they asked. And that's where I learned how to join the dots between like everything that I learned on the I guess entertainment side of storytelling, which involves a lot of deep craft, but also understanding people. One of my business mentors says, and this is with business, sales and marketing, he says what it really comes down to is being a student of humanity, which I think is a great way of looking at it. So the understanding stories and people as an actor, director, storytelling expert who went around the world teaching storytelling, I think really kind of laid the groundwork to, I guess, know how to listen to people when I then decided to create products that people might use to get what they want.
I think it's a valuable story there, to be honest. I think, with today society and business and stuff, where everything's sort of pushing towards technology, AI-driven software, but I think it's easy to forget that at the end of all that, our customers are all human, and we need to connect with them, and understanding people, and people's behaviors are key. And that's why social media is so good, right? Because they understand people and people's behaviors. They do a lot of work on it, a lot of research on it, and then they deliver a product that keeps you on there because they understand what people are like and what they want and what drives them. That's it. And they've got a terrifying amount of data to kind of make those decisions and back that up. And with all their phenomenal resources, why have they ended up calling really fundamental parts of their products stories? All of these platforms have sections that are just called stories, and they know that really the market for storytelling is inexhaustible. People are never ever going to, the supply and demand for stories is infinite. It infinitely favors the demand. Yeah, and they push as well, don't they? So like obviously their algorithms, they push what you enjoy. So if you enjoy something, they'll show you more of it. So they know, or they kind of like this kind of thing, which is similar about that transformation story, and it's getting stuff that people can connect with, that language people can connect with, and something that people can buy into, and giving them more of it, really. Yeah, exactly. So you have to become your own little
microcosm of that, but without the the bajillions of dollars.
Yeah, I suppose that's the difficulty, and I think a lot of businesses, from my experience, especially small business, don't really ask. They don't, they don't survey, they don't email, they don't ask to try and gather any of this information, and I'm not really sure how else they're going to get it, to be honest.
Yeah, you have to get, you have to make a conscious decision. You have to make a conscious, committed decision, and this is something that you can do in 5 minutes. If you have reviews already, go on those reviews and copy and paste them into a Google Doc, and then highlight in bold, not whenever they say something nice about you, but highlight in bold the language, any phrases, any language that they use to describe where they were before and how they paint that picture, and then where they were afterwards and how they paint that picture. And some people don't have reviews. That's fine. You can go and look at other people's reviews. So one really useful thing is to go look on Amazon and look on the bookstore for things that relate, for books that relate to how you help people. And good and bad reviews can be very helpful. People say, I got this, not great really, I got this book because I've been struggling with blah blah blah, or I wanted to know how to blah 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 without blah blah blah. That stuff, copy and paste, and see if it resonates with other people. And then good reviews will be like, after reading this book, I have, and then they'll tell you the thing that matters most to them about what help with that topic really means to them and what they really care about. And you can start there, and then you can reach out to other people and say, using that language, I'm looking to find out more about people who have this problem and want this outcome. Would you be open to talking about it for a while? If I buy you a coffee or something, and you can get the ball rolling from wherever you are with this, but you have to make that conscious decision to go, right, I'm going to put myself to one side, and I'm going to put the customers first, the people that I want to help first, and I'm going to go find out what they care about, what matters to them, what their life looks like, how problems, challenges, obstacles really manifest in detail. What you kind of want is the stuff that people say to their spouse when they wake them up at 3 a.m. saying, I can't sleep because, insert that. Another business mentor says, what are people Googling in incognito mode to try and solve their problem? And it's that really kind of, intimate language that you're looking for. And, of course, I'm assuming I only work with people who deliver amazing stuff for clients and don't know how to communicate. What I don't do, and under no circumstances will do, is sell, try and use some copywriting voodoo to convince people of something that they don't actually want or won't actually help them. I mean, that's a whole side of, that's a dark side of sales and marketing and direct response marketing that I simply will have nothing to do with whatsoever. As far as I'm concerned, my job is not persuasion at all. I don't see marketing as that. I see it as relationship building, as earning someone's attention, then giving, using stories to earn that attention, which then gives you the time to communicate some information, which means that people have the information that they need to decide, oh my goodness, this is the thing that I've been looking for, I want to buy it from you. Or that's not for me. That's how I see sales and marketing.
Yeah, it can get a bad rep, especially there are a lot of people out there and a lot of kind of scam artists really who are not interested in helping people and just, they just want to make a quick buck, which can be frustrating and put people off when they hear marketing or sales and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think it is important, and that's why probably your approach is more important with the storytelling, because you're telling people about who you are, what you're all about, and building that relationship in the first instance, and then you're practicing what you preach by helping them do the same. So it's not like, oh, you can do this and you've never done it, or you have no interest in doing it that way, etc.
That's it. Yeah, I have to drink my own medicine first and really work it out, because there's layers to this, right? You can, so the first rule I have with clients is about using the language of your market, of your dream customers and clients. And the second rule is that you aim it properly. You aim your story properly and precisely. And that means that you need to figure out who specifically you are in a position to help the most, and you aim the story there. For example, I have a client who, one of the things that she can help with is or wants to help with, one of the things she has a lot of empathy with, is people who are stuck in financial distress. And so one of the stories is, if someone's broke, the problem is she is not in a position to help people who are broke because she can't fund scholarship places. She doesn't have external funding, something that she wants to add on later down the line. And, for one client, help them craft a story to help them get funding so they don't only have to work with people who have money. But for this client, she's not in that position yet. So she had to rethink who she was aiming the story at, because there's a lot of factors that go into, if you use a powerful story, you're going to attract someone. Make sure it's the clients and customers who you actually want to attract, and figure that out properly so that they've got all the characteristics that are necessary for you to actually be able to deliver that transformational story. And you need to be careful with that. You need to be precise with that, because people will turn up if you do this properly, and you want to make sure it's the right people who are turning up, who you can really help, and who are ready to commit to getting help from you. Again, with the coaches that I work with, it's a 50-50 game, and a good coach will know that they're relying on their customer being invested. Their client is completely committed, is ready to do the work, isn't going to kind of deflect responsibility and look for things to blame. So you need to think, well, what does life look like for someone who's in a position where they're ready to commit? And if you ask that question and you go through a process to find the answers, then you'll find it, and it might surprise you, and it'll be very useful to put that in your story, because it will be more specific to people who are also in a position where they're ready to commit, ready to get the outcome, ready to get help getting the outcome, and ready to do what it takes and follow up on the help that you give them. So yeah, there's layers that go into this, but it's simple. But just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy.
It's quite interesting that actually I've had a lot of coaches on the show recently, and they all talk about having the right clients, the right people who are wanting and willing to help themselves. I equate it to giving up smoking. So there's patches, there's you can use the vapes, there's all sorts of things like that. You can get medication. There's all sorts of ways and things that are proven to work to help you give up smoking. But if you're really not into it and you don't want to do it, then you're not going to quit.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
It's about finding them right people. And if you can't find them right people, then it's all very well doing your marketing and get your story out there. But if it's drawing in the wrong people, then actually you're not going to have a very good experience of it.
Yeah. I mean, you've had some great coaches. I was listening to the chap who's had a crazy career you talk to, who's been who helps with legal immigration stuff right now.
Andy.
Yeah. God, the stories, man.
Yeah, some of them have had incredible stories, incredible journeys. I learned quite a lot from a lot of them, but it's surprising that a lot of the same messages keep coming up. A lot of the similar messages, about getting the right people to work with, and a lot of them. They start off maybe as a personal trainer or as a coach, as a business coach or something, and the best ones tend to evolve, so they become more of a life coach almost in the end, because they realize that actually this is a problem for this person, but there's been a lot of steps that's got them to this place, and it's a bigger issue than just, oh, they need to go to the gym once a week. Why are they going to the gym? So it comes back to what you're saying with finding out, the language and the reason behind. So your client with the finding out that actually all these people's problems are manifesting at work, whereas actually that might be the end problem, but there was a lot of steps that got them there. And the good coaches that figure that out are working back through that to help that person in all aspects of their life, really.
That's amazing. I find that very exciting. That's something, you kind of level up the real problem underneath the problem you thought was the problem, and kind of follow that trail and keep kind of upgrading, I guess, the impact that you can have as a coach. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I think it's about they finding their story and their language and figuring out that actually, I'm more than a personal trainer, or I'm more than a business coach, and actually, they genuinely want to help people. So they find these ways are more impactful to help people. So they dig into that more. So they're almost unconsciously doing it, and that's not the case for everybody. There's few and far between that I've experienced, but the really good ones kind of figure it out for themselves and kind of work in and dig a bit deeper. Whereas I think a lot more of us, me included, would need a lot more help with that, and I need to to do the research and to have the support to figure out actually what is going on and how do I help these people.
Yeah, a bit of structure can be really helpful if it's not something, that's what it took to help me join the dots. I had to really follow structure, and that can help. It can help you do it faster as well. It can help you kind of, this is the message you need to send. Have you scheduled, to have a sit down with people? That stuff's great. I really like that evolution of people coaching. I thought I was a personal trainer, but what I'm really doing is helping people, and here's what they're saying it's helping them with. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and it's about not being rigid, really, and thinking, all right, I'm a personal trainer, I have to do this, have to do this, have to do this, and thinking, actually, what am I trying to do? Well, I'm trying to help this person improve their life. So, wherever that may take me, as long as I can provide some value and give them some support, then I'll go down that route.
Yeah.
So, and I quite like that, because it takes a lot of courage, actually, especially when because everything now is, you have to have a niche, you have to push this, you have to do that, stay in a particular lane. And the ones that, start that way and figure out that actually I can be a lot more than that, seem to have a lot of success from my experience.
Yeah, I suppose it's really more meaningful as well. I suppose that's how I felt, because I worked for marketing agencies. I still work with a marketing agency, but I was like an employee of various marketing agencies for a while, and would just be like, I write the copy, but then I suppose I followed a bit of a trail of breadcrumbs to end up doing what I'm doing now, which I find infinitely more meaningful. So I guess what's exciting about doing that and following, like, okay, so what's this problem connected to? What's underneath it? What's the language that they use about that? The personal reward, I suppose, is that you do more fulfilling work, because helping someone with problems that they care about and having them incredibly grateful to you for helping with that specific problem is an incredibly rewarding thing to do as a coach or consultant or whatever, basically, in life as a human.
Yeah, well, it's very similar for you then, isn't it? Because ultimately you could have pigeonholed yourself as a copywriter and just, I'm a copywriter, this is what I do. But you've kind of, evolved and discovered, actually, people are struggling with this. I can help you with what you're struggling with, and kind of gone where the problem is, which is what you're trying to teach your clients to do, really, is find out where the problem is to then support around that, really.
Yeah, exactly. And then find, I did pigeon myself as a copywriter for a longest time, actually. And it's a really good way to to put it. Actually, I've not thought of it like that. That with copywriting, I found that there was a problem that was frustrating that I couldn't get access to. I didn't have access to solving what was really going on a level that would have had a better outcome for my clients. And the reason for that was they thought I was a copywriter, and so did I. But what that meant was I was just order taking. I was just saying, what do you want me to write? And that wasn't doing the whole job, because they needed to do work underneath that. Before that, they needed to discover, they needed to know that they shouldn't come up with what they want their copywriter to say, and that their copywriter needed to be kind of unleashed and given a whole process to go way, way, way deeper, way, way, way further, to really be able to impact the offer that was on sale itself. So it goes into helping them design, reposition the offer, the fundamental offer to the market, to be able to get that. And I've never thought about that. Thanks, Aaron. That's really helpful.
Yeah, I think it's important that we appreciate that and understand that, actually, and that's what the best coaches or consultants will do. They won't put themselves in the box that, oh, I only do this. It's about helping people, really, and finding where they need that help and how to best serve them and give them that help and support, which is what you're doing and what you're helping your clients to do now as well, really, is to figure that out. Because it's, if we're a coach or a consultant, very rarely do people come to us without a problem, because they're looking for something, they want support, they want help. So if we don't if we don't correctly figure out and diagnose what that problem is, then we can't support them. We can do all the superficial stuff on the top, but that's not going to do anything, really.
Yeah, that's it. You need to. I mean, I suppose that's a helpful way to look at it, because it means that then you can prescribe the full extent of what you need in order to really help someone. So I won't now work with someone who just wants a copywriter to basically make their words sound fancier, or take what they say and kind of proofread it and put it on a website. That's not a level of help that I give. I require access to coaching you to find out on a deeper level from the people that you help, the language that you need to use to communicate that properly. So yeah, I really like that. Yeah,
and I think as well, in this modern era with ChatGPT and all the AI and stuff that could write copy for us, the issue again is just it's magnified, really, because if you're not putting in the right stuff, you're not going to get the right output. So you can ask it to write all the copy you want, but if you haven't got the right messaging behind it, or you don't understand what your clients are looking for, it's just going to write generic blurb, really, again, which is not going to help you.
Yeah, by definition it will, because I mean, I'm not an AI expert, but I've experimented with it for many, many hours. But what I understand what it does as a large language model is, by definition, take what's already out there and kind of aggregate it together with very fancy stuff that I don't understand, and then output what by definition is going to be what's a remix of whatever it's found in patterns of language already, which is just not really what you want. It's never going to be specific. It's never going to be surprising and bold and original and pierce through to the core of someone who reads it going, oh my goodness, finally, this is finally the help that I need to get this. It's very, very unlikely that ChatGPT is going to help you do that, unless, as you say, it's what you input into it. So it can help you research. It can help you. What it can do, what I use it to do, is to filter and search through huge, call transcripts, say, and tell it to help pull out verbatim, word for word, all the language that describes the before, the after, all of that stuff, and then it's like a research assistant on crack. It will do that in like a few seconds, and it will save you a week of huffing and puffing and pouring through hours and hours and hours of call recordings to find that stuff. So it's really got its uses for this, but I wouldn't say. I know people who do just churn out all of their marketing using ChatGPT, and yeah, it was quick, but you're still going around in circles. It's saying the same thing in different ways over and over again, and you're putting it out there, and literally no one cares.
Yeah, it's only as good as the input.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing the work to figure out your message, your story, the input's not going to be any good anyway. So then you're just going to get the generic stuff out.
Yeah.
Ultimately, to use it correctly and to get the best out of it, and still, I think it loses a bit of a personal touch. If you're going to put all the work in to figure out your story and everything else, and find the right language to use, I actually think the writing stuff will become easy.
Yeah, me too.
Me too. So, and people only use ChatGPT because they struggle because they don't know what to write. Well, that's not the right answer. The right answer is to figure out what you need to write rather than just get something to make something up for you.
Yeah, that's it. It's far easier. The copywriting that I enjoy the most is after doing like a bunch of sessions with a client who's put in the work that I've set them to go and do, and we've gone through it all on calls and so on, and I say, okay, great, well, I'm going to put together the first draft of your sales page, your landing page, whatever. Man, that it's so easy. It just pours out of me, and that's saying something, because I've got an initial diagnosis of ADHD, so I don't necessarily. I've picked a fairly difficult career for myself. Acting was easy; it was all just like new shiny stuff. But this involves some sitting down and really doing some work, which acting does as well, I will say. But preparing a role is a phenomenal amount of work. But sitting down in a room on your own and with a blank page and writing something from scratch can be really tough. This makes it not a blank page at all. It's like an abundance of very, very, very exciting material that you've drunk in, and it just flows. But I do have to mitigate my ADHD with plenty of structure and frameworks for working and doing writing sprints and getting different focus stuff out like that. But yeah, this makes it easy. Makes it so easy.
Yeah, I think I have a lot of friends and colleagues with ADHD and stuff, and I do find if they're enthusiastic with something, if they really like something, then there's nobody better. That hyper focus comes in, and they get they get things done better than anybody could. I think the struggle
hyperfocus is great.
Yeah, I think the struggle is when things are become a bit tedious or boring, like people haven't put the effort in to find that story, find that enthusiasm, and then it can be really difficult. I mean, it's difficult for most people, I suppose, but if you've got ADHD as well and it becomes a bit dull and boring, it can be a real tedious slog to get through it.
Yeah, it becomes tedious to get through anything. You'll find all sorts of other jobs to do, other things to write, other things to the garden needs weeding, and then you just go and do that instead.
Yeah, but it comes down to that importance of understanding who we are and what we want to achieve, and the people we're trying to connect with, really. Because, like I say, I seem to come back to it on every single podcast that I do, no matter what we're talking about. But it's all about that understanding people, their relationships, and understanding yourself, understanding others, and how we can make them connections.
Yeah, relationships, connections. That's it. That's all it comes down to is having written assets that help you do that, so you don't have to just be doing that one-to-one. That's you're not constrained to only having those stories and those relationship and trust building trajectories with people. They can happen at scale. We do this all the time. I love books. I love writing. I'm writing a book for myself to kind of put together what the story that I help people to experience for themselves if they're in if they do great work but don't know how to communicate that to new clients who don't know them and are therefore stuck, only get clients through referrals. Then here's a map that will get you to where you want to be, which is getting yourself out there, getting customers and clients at scale with written assets. And I love doing that because I'm, as we were saying before the call, I've always had a real interest in So Have You, real appetite in personal development, and a huge amount of learning you do with that is through books and people writing assets, and you can get real connections with so many people who I see as mentors. I've never met, we've never had a one-to-one, we've never created that relationship in person, but I feel like I do have a dialogue with them because I consume their written materials, as well as podcasts and everything else. But I find there's something very special about the relationship with someone who reads a book, who then resonates with that book, who then thinks, I know this person and how they work and why they work, and they are the only person I want to help me with that. People do that a lot. When they read a book, they become a real true fan very quickly because they've sat and spent hours with that person's stories, their methodology, their thinking, how they approach things, the transformation story, and all the suggestions and advice that they have about how to get around the obstacles that you'll encounter when you commit to trying to do this thing that the book helps you try and do. And you feel like you've already started that journey with that person, and that books are a great way of kind of creating that connection, human trust and connection and relationships and conversations without having to do it one-to-one.
Yeah, and if you finish a book, then obviously their messaging has impacted you, or you can resonate with it at least, because we've all had them books that you read a few chapters and you're like, oh, and then you put it down and you never pick it back up.
Yeah,
because the message just doesn't resonate with you.
Yeah, it didn't grip you. Yeah, it didn't hook you in. It didn't grip you. It didn't take you down the rabbit hole. That's what you need to do, and that's where craft comes in with story, with writing, with copywriting. Is that like with that client I mentioned earlier, if the juicy bit is in chapter 18, unfortunately, a lot of people who needed to read chapter 18 have missed out because the title of your book didn't speak to where they are now and where they want to be. The introduction didn't get them excited to be like, oh my goodness, this is going to help me. This is specifically going to help me with the thing that I care about. Your origin story was fluffy and interesting, but beside the point. And so it wasn't aligned with that transformation story that was like, okay, this is more evidence in favor of this person has something to say that's relevant to me right now. You need to do, certain things in copywriting call that the golden thread. And it's something, it's a discipline. There's a lot of books out there that I read that are great. There's one that I'm reading at the moment that's on habits, and it's by a behavioral scientist who's just got a phenomenal body of knowledge and experience about helping create and craft habits. I love that, and I need it because I, very likely have ADHD, and that's something that I constantly need to consume, refine structures around to help me. But man, it's a slog. Even though it's amazing stuff in there, it's a real slog because it's just missing the craft of writing that helps someone to go from one chapter to the next, to the next, to the next, and stay with you. It's about just getting someone to stay with you through that story, through the book, through the whatever that written content is. You need to know the craft of story to keep attention. Otherwise, people just go by the wayside. Just look at the Rings of Power on Amazon. It's got terrible. It's should be an amazing story, but only 37% finished season 1. That's not good. No, that's not good when you've chucked $1 billion at it. Kudos to everyone. They've achieved more than I have, so take this criticism with a pinch of salt. But I think that's an indicator that there's something missing in the craft somewhere.
Yeah, I think I managed 1.5 episodes of that, I think.
Did you? Oh, what did you think? I didn't even. I love Lord of the Rings. I just didn't want to go there.
Same. I love Lord of the Rings, so that's why I tried it. I thought, oh, it might be surprising. It might be good.
Yeah.
I just didn't grip me. There's nothing. awful about it, but it just didn't capture my attention really.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Which is a
It's,
terrible crime, in my opinion. You've
yeah,
got
the
one
movies
job.
are so good. Yeah,
Yeah,
what can you do? Yeah, and this is the same, like what you're saying about get captured attention, especially with stuff like non-fiction books. If you're reading marketing books, business books, or anything non-fiction, really, they can become really difficult to read really quickly if there's no, if the storytelling's not right there, if it's not taking you on a journey really, because a lot of them can become very heavily just ingrained in tactics or just the nitty gritty, and it becomes almost like a textbook then, which nobody just sits and reads textbooks for pleasure.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, very few people do. Certainly not people with ADHD.
No, definitely not. I can't manage it myself. That's it's a bridge too far for me. I only did
Yeah.
textbooks in school, and only when I had to.
Yeah, under threat of academic failure.
Yeah, and that says a lot about who we are as humans as well, right? Because without a story, we really find it challenging to buy into anything without a story behind it or something to follow.
Yeah, that's it. We need that. I mean, as I say, your brain can only really understand anything in its experience of in interacting with the world on any level in narrative form. So any time that you're communicating with your message that isn't in that narrative form, you're asking people to translate it into a story, and they're only really going to do that if they either have to or they've got a lot to gain from it. And why do that when, if you tell the story well, people remember. People are 22 times more likely to remember a fact if it's in the context of a story. They did studies on what they called narrative transformation, which is people who are presented with a persuasive argument for something to see if they will entertain a different perspective on something than what they currently hold, are a great deal more likely to be open to that different perspective if it's in the form of a story, compared to just given all the persuasive points of the argument. There's a lot of studies that show that if you use stories, then it's what we've been saying. It's the way that you get you get people to pay attention to you first and foremost, so you can then perhaps offer them some information that would help them understand what you can really offer them. Without that attention, you don't have any currency to actually present that information. And then if someone's in that narrative form, they're having to work way less hard to actually understand what the hell it is that you're even talking about, what you're offering them. If you talk using stories, are far more likely to get them to be open to considering things from a perspective that's different to what they've previously. A lot of people, one of the main things that you can do to help them is to question some fundamentally held belief that they're holding on to, or assumption that they've got about their situation or something that's just wrong, and they don't know that. And actually, if they were able to be open to seeing things from a different perspective, that would be one of the most profound ways that you could help them, because then they might believe something about themselves or their situation that lets them behave different. And if they behave different, then they'll get different outcomes. And stories are, the narrative form, narrative transformation. If you let someone get immersed in a story and then present them with that opportunity to see things a different way, to question that belief, then they are far more likely to be receptive to going on that journey. So
Absolutely.
Stories.
Absolutely. You've twigged something. I'm going to go a little bit off the beaten path for a second, but stick with me. Have you ever seen on TV, the people who have really good memories and remember they can remember massive numbers and huge lists of numbers and things like that?
Yes. Yeah. And I know what you're going to say. Yes.
Yeah. They always use, so they explain it afterwards, is they use a story they make the numbers or whatever it is that they need to remember into a story, and that's how they remember all the numbers. So it shows how powerful it can be.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh man, that's a great analogy. Do you know? I read. Darren Brown.
Yeah.
Do you remember him from? He's not around as much these days, but I thought he was great in the when was that? The noughties, 2010s and stuff and that.
Yeah, the early 2010s, I think, is it?
Yeah. I read one of his books that that kind of broke down exactly what you've just said, how people memorize, and it's mnemonics, I think they call it, or something. Like the memory palace. And I tested it out after reading that chapter in his book, and memorized pi to I can't remember how many decimal places, but using that system, so you associate each number with a letter, and then in combinations, different letters then create an object. So for an example, let me see if I can remember. The number 1 is the letter L because it looks similar. The number 2 is ch, I believe, because it's got 2 vertical legs like the tallies, which is weird. Or maybe it was N. Yeah, I think it was N. Anyway, so you put certain different letters together and you get different objects and animals. Gosh, someone's going to be screaming at this episode going, "You're ruining this whole system. I know the system and that's not it. You're talking nonsense." But this is what I remember. And so basically 2 is represented by the animal, a hen, because it's got the N in its name. And 1 is represented by leg. So if you've got 1 and then 2, it's probably quite easy to remember, but this is how. But then you've got loads more numbers. You would have a story that the word that represents 1 being leg, and then the head, a hen, and you tell a story that there's a leg, and then some interaction happens with a hen, and you want it to be like weird and grotesque, so it's a more memorable story. So you might picture a cut off leg with blood everywhere jumping along, and then a hen jumps out of a bush and attacks it, and then you basically make up an insane story using all of these words that represent the letters, and it really worked. I memorized stuff that I would never be able to memorize. I could barely remember my girlfriend at the time's phone number, let alone pi to however many decimal places. I'd forgotten about that. That's a great analogy. I'm going to use that.
Yeah, it's it just came to me actually, just while you were talking about 22% of people remember more things from stories, and I just think the people who are the best at remembering stuff in the world use stories to enforce that and to shore up their memory, really.
Yeah, to go and count cards in Las Vegas or something.
Yeah, so it shows how important it is to us as it is ingrained in us as humans, storytelling. That's why we love movies. That's why we love everything on TV is a story in some form.
Yeah, it's the easiest access point to start a relationship. I mean, here's another story. In one of my first acting jobs, out of drama school. So I went to an old school conservatoire actor training drama school called the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama, where very important old school actors went, and I absolutely loved it. And finished training in one of my first jobs out of drama school, was expecting it all to be so like bloody serious and disciplined like we were at drama school, and it absolutely wasn't. The thing that really hit me after doing a few jobs was we'd sit in rehearsals, and for the first week or so we'd do what's called table work, where everyone sits around tables and gets the scripts out and read through the play and talk about it and do bits of research and write annotations and look up whatever people need to look up to flesh out the world, to understand the world of the story. And actually what happened is that half of the time was spent people, we'd read through a chunk of the script, and then the director would be like, do you know, I've got a funny story about this. I worked with so-and-so, and they'd just tell you a story, a funny story, a weird story, a shocking story. And then an actor would go, oh, do you know, I worked with them as well. Let me tell you what happened. And then they'd tell you a story about that person. Or then someone would say, do you know, I did this show at the RSC in 1987. And, you know, such and such actor was there. And there was one bit where they were completely drunk and they'd forgotten to come on stage. And they were sitting at the back of the auditorium. And they leaned to the person next to them and said, this is the bit where I come on. And, you know, everyone would like guffaw and laugh. And basically, half of that first week of rehearsals is just telling stories, anecdotes. And I recently, doing what I do now, I think about that and I'm like, gosh, yeah, actors and directors and all, you know, people in that creative rehearsal process tell stories all of the time, especially at the beginning. And actually, I don't think it's any kind of waste of time. What I think is going on is that they are in a position as an actor, as a creative team, you're put together. You often don't know. Usually, everyone's strangers. You know, some people might have worked together before, but often everyone's strangers. You meet each other for the first time, and then you've got 4 to 6 weeks to rehearse a play and put it on in front of thousands of people live for however long after that. You need to bond and trust each other so fast, it's unbelievable. The stakes are astronomically high on getting some social good bond, good currency, trust, rapport, relationship building. And I think it's no accident whatsoever that what happens in most rehearsal rooms to do that, the thing that you do that with is telling stories, sharing stories, and that directors don't stop that and stamp it out and say, you know, no chatting. We've got work to do, right? That's what, you know, in a corporate environment, you probably get told off if you kept stopping your work to tell more and more anecdotes. You kind of do that around the water cooler, but it's a really important bit of that currency in that world to actually get to know people and let them get to know you and get shortcut inroads into having a relationship, having a rapport, and then, you know, being able to refer back to it and being like, I love that story you told about that actor at that time. That sounds like a crazy world. What was it like? Was everyone drunk all the time? And you kind of have rapid inroads into actually having you know, rapport, relationships and stories, so you can get on stage with them and feel like you've got this bond and you can trust each other. You can be, you know, artists who need to be able to be open. We rely on each other to tell a story together to an audience, but you need that personal relationship first. So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, storytelling is key. How do people get in touch with you, Peter? How do they learn a bit more about yourself?
So I am on LinkedIn as Peter Bray, and I've also been working on a free 5-step course that will help you find the story, the transformation story that you need to get figured out. And I can give you the simple structured stages to find that out. You can find that at peterbraymarketing.com. Go there and you can sign up for that if that's something that you'd like to use to find a message that resonates with dream clients and customers like we've been talking about.
Brilliant. I'll make sure that I put the link in the show notes for people so they'll be able to find you easier and get in touch with you. Is there anything that you want to leave us with today? Any final thoughts or messages?
I just want to say thanks so much for having me on the show. It's been an absolute delight. I hope it's been helpful to anyone listening who wants to use stories to help serve their clients and customers better. So thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks for being on. It's been my pleasure, honestly. It's been great to have you on the show. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks. Take care.
Take care. Cheers.
Hey, listeners, if you've been enjoying They Not Like Us, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to leave a positive review and subscribe. It might seem like a small thing, but for an independent podcast like this, it makes a huge difference. Your support helps the show get discovered by more people, allowing us to bring on even more amazing guests and continue sharing content that resonates with you. So if today's episode or any past ones have sparked something in you, hit that subscribe button and drop a quick review. Your feedback keeps this community growing, and I'm so grateful to have you along for the ride. Thanks so much.